Hey y'all, I totally forgot to tape today when we were doing parts of speech, so I'm going to run through this really quickly. If you look, my notes are kind of in the background that we took during class. I, of course, I'm going to take a picture of this and I will post it on OneNote. If you were watching this and you were a second period kid, then we didn't quite get through everything they did, and so you may see a few things that are a little bit different. We started English, of course, today, and tonight for homework, you were going to work a sample English passage. Passage 1, you're going to give yourself 9 minutes. I want you to really practice timing as we go through these English passages. But the first thing that I have up here is that we need to know and begin to strategize that every English section has 5 passages, and you get 45 minutes to do all 75 questions. So 75 questions, 45 minutes. But those 75 questions are divided up into 5 different passages. And so about 15 questions per passage, about 9 minutes per passage. So you want to begin thinking about that. English is different from reading in that you really do need to read the passages. And that's what number 2 says. You need to read the passages in English. In reading, we talked about how you could choose your strategy, how you wanted to deal with the passages, but in English, you really need to read the passages. And the reason why is what we wrote in number 3. Very often, to determine the right answer on an English passage, you have to be able to look at the underlined portion and see context. Context will help you determine the right answer. So the underlined portion is a verb. You may need to go and look and read the sentences around that underlined portion and see, are the other verbs in present tense or past tense? Are they talking about future events? Are they talking about past events? And then you need to find the right answer, the verb that matches that tense. So number 3 says very often the right answer is determined by context. That means, and context means the words, sentences around the underlined portion. So you really should read the English passages. They are a lot shorter than the reading passages, so you should be able to do that in plenty of time. Number 4 note says that, if we switch now into our English text, page 11, we start talking about verbs. All verbs or a verb, the definition of a verb we find out on page 11 is words that express action or states of being. We talked about how all verbs have number, which means they're either singular or plural, and all verbs have tense, which means when they happened, past, present, future. There are a lot of other tenses, but we're going to focus on past, present, and future for our cases. The verbs to be and to have are the most tested verbs on the ACT because they are irregular. When you conjugate to be, it turns into is, am, are, was, were, been, and then have is irregular as well. When you conjugate have, it's either has, have, or had. And it's irregular because the past tense of have is always had, even if it's singular or plural. Either way, it's always had. We talked about nouns, and if you will go on page 11 and underline that definition, or actually page 12, and underline that definition of a noun. It's a person, place, or thing, or idea. There's a concept, such a thing as, sorry, my battery's running low. There are abstract nouns. Those are nouns that are not, you can't actually hold or touch, like happiness or joy. And then we talked about how words that end, if you can put an article in front of a word, like a, an, or the in front of the word, most likely it's a noun. So that's another little trick. But also words that have these suffixes, like ness, mint, tion, ity, tude, those are usually abstract nouns, but they're usually nouns. All right, so we go from verbs and nouns to pronouns. Pronouns are words that replace nouns, and the name of the noun that they replace is called the antecedent. Pronouns also have case, and they also have number. So pronouns can be singular or plural, and then case means where do you use them in a sentence. Pronouns can be subjects, but not all pronouns can be subjects. A subject of a sentence is always a noun or a pronoun, but as far as pronouns go, it's got to be a subjective pronoun. And that's what I mean by case. Where do I use it in the sentence? Can I use it as a subject, or am I going to use it as an object? And that's really what these number 6 says, which we did not get to in second period, but 6 says that Every sentence must have a subject and a verb in order to be a sentence. Subjects are either nouns or pronouns. These pronouns are subjective. What a subjective pronoun is, it's a pronoun that you can use as the subject of a sentence, the doer of the action. That's the definition of a subject. Objective are pronouns that cannot be used as subject of the sentence. They're usually used as the object of the sentence. And what that means is they're the receiver of the actions, or they're the object of a prepositional phrase, which we will talk about in just a minute. These are the subjective pronouns. I mean the pronouns that you can use as a subject. I, you, who, he, she, we, it, they. So you would say, I went to the store. She went to the store. They went to the store. You can't say him went to the store. Us went to the store, right? Because those are objective pronouns. You use those as the object of the sentence. They're the receiver of the action. That whatever the verb is doing, they're receiving that action. Or they're the object of a prepositional phrase. So I went to the store with him, right? Okay, so just kind of know, we're going to get into that more heavily. We also know if a passage is in first, second, or third person based on the pronouns. And sometimes in English and sometimes in reading, you'll have a question that says, what point of view is this told from? So first person point of view, that means that the actual narrator is telling it from their perspective. And the pronouns that will be used are like I, me, we, us, our, right? So you're included in the action if it's first person. Second person is always you. It's basically pointing to, talking to the audience. So if you see you in it, it should be second person. Third person are these, like you're outside, the narrator is outside the action. She, they, them. You can also use the pronoun one for third person. The last one is the subject of the, oh, I hadn't gotten there yet. Okay, so we've talked about verbs, nouns, pronouns. Now we need to talk about prepositions. Prepositions are words of time. And if you look on page 13, you have a list. I actually gave out a list today too. You should memorize these. This is tells, and I told my other two classes, think about a log and the relationship you could have to a log. So it could be on the log. I can go over the log, under the log, around the log. I can be by the log. I can be inside the log. Prepositions give you time and location. Prepositional phrases are what will be tested on the ACT. Prepositional phrases begin with preposition and they end with an object. An object of a prepositional phrase is always a noun, okay? And here's what is number 8, says the subject of the sentence can never be in the prepositional phrase. That's important because they will stick prepositional phrases in between your subject and your verb, and they'll make the subject and the verb disagree. And because they put that prepositional phrase in there, they're trying to distract you so you can't hear that subject verb disagreement. So you just need to know that the subject of a sentence can never be in a prepositional phrase. So that noun that's at the object of the prepositional phrase, that's not your subject. That's the object of the prepositional phrase, okay? Last two things we got to on 6 and 7 on page 13, read over that. Adjectives modify nouns and pronouns, okay? It's the only part of speech that modifies nouns or pronouns. So beautiful box. Box is a noun. It's being described by beautiful. Beautiful is the adjective, right? Bright classroom. Classroom is a noun. It's a person, place, or thing. It's a place, right? And bright is describing it. So bright is your adjective. 7 says adverbs modify verbs, adjectives or other adverbs, and phrases and clauses, okay? Highlight that at the bottom of page 13. Many times you can pick out an adverb because it ends in ly. Now, you can't take that to the bank and say all ly words are adverbs, but if it is describing a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, then it is definitely an adverb. And that ly should give you like a little flag. Hey, look at this. This is probably an adverb. There are also 2 other kinds of adverbs. We call them adverbs of time. Those are adverbs like later, tomorrow, then, or conjunctive adverbs, which are like transition words. However, therefore, moreover, nevertheless. I did forget to talk about conjunctions, which is number 5 on page 13. There are 2 kinds of conjunctions. There are the conjunctions that you can use to join sentences or words or clauses together. Those are the fanboys, like what are they? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. I'm having a hard time with that right now. Those you can use to join two sentences together or to join words together. You could have a compound subject like Miss Broders and I, right? And is joining Miss Broders and I. Then there are subordinating conjunctions, which are words that help create dependent clauses so that our writing is and our sentences can be varied. Those are words like since, if, after, as is. So those are subordinating conjunctions, and we'll get into that more soon. I think that's as far as we got. And we'll finish that up tomorrow, and we'll do those exercises on page 14 and 15 tomorrow. Hope that helps. This is just a brief review. Should be